Hey everyone, it's 2023, which means it's time for Film.Music.Media's annual look back at some of the best scores across visual media. Each year we take a look at the top 5 scores across video games, television, and film. Each score is assessed as part of a complete work and how it functions within the narrative it was written for, and not as a standalone album. Alright, let's dive in. Stephanie Economou brings her talents to this expansive DLC that builds upon the main game that was released back in 2020. Not only does the score build upon the Sonic world established by composers Jesper Kyd, Sarah Schachner, and Einar Selvik, it completely fleshes out its own signature soundscape that gets the benefit of being much more focused and engaging than the 150-hour sprawling main game. The score is textural and tactile with a great modern flair. The score works wonderfully with gameplay and dialogue cutscenes, never overpowering to overstay its welcome for the player. The score for the first Horizon by Joris de Man and The Flight was an incredible feat to a game that attempted to bring a new world from the ground up for players to get lost in. For Forbidden West, Joris de Man and The Flight are joined by Niels van der Leest and Alexa Lazochuk to tackle the more ambitious approach as Aloy's journey takes her into uncharted territory. It's not uncommon for open-world games to have multiple composers, and here the group manages to inject their own unique voices while still creating a cohesive adventure. The score also never forgets the emotional heart of Aloy's story, and it carries the narrative as much as it does the gameplay. While a Call of Duty score may seem pretty simple to approach at this point, with the sort of copy-paste nature the game itself has become, never underestimate how crucial the music is. Whether it's the rinse and repeat nature of multiplayer or the familiar structure of a COD campaign, the score becomes the one element to bring something new with each iteration. Sarah Schachner continues what she built in Modern Warfare for this direct follow-up, and in a way she has helped define what Call of Duty is for this generation of gamers, the same way that Stephen Barton, Harry Gregson Williams, Lauren Balfe, and Hans Zimmer did for the original Modern Warfares. It is a shame that this may be the last Call of Duty score we hear from Sarah, given the way Infinity Ward has disrespected her music, causing a public falling out, but Sarah deserves much more respect than that, and to work with people who realize how essential her music really is for the gaming experience. A gorgeous evolution of his score from the first game, Olivier de Riviere's follow-up transports us back to the game's revisionist history of 14th century France during the 100 Years' War. Immediately the score steeps us in the time period and setting of the game's narrative. It's somber and bleak, with a heavy focus on the perils of our central characters. The score calls back to that delicate, flickering candle feel of hope barely hanging on from the first game, but it isn't afraid to take us into a more intense and darker territory. Even though the game may present some over-the-top visuals that put realism to the side, the score takes itself very seriously, and it helps ground everything. This is a rich and powerful period score that evokes the pains and struggles of the French Inquisition, as if we stepped into a time portal. Bear McCreary follows up an absolutely stunning score to God of War with God of War Ragnarok. Bear has always been an incredible game score composer, but God of War showcases just how powerful interactive storytelling can be. That thundering 3-note motif is back, and we continue Kratos' journey with his son for Ragnarok. The score puts story first, while making sure our narrative is anchored with the thematic structure that is needed to carry us on this visceral and emotional journey. Simple story and complex characters allow Bear to grow the world he built in the last game, making Kratos' world feel ancient and real. The action and gameplay music keep players wholly engaged on a level that other games rarely achieve, and the end result is something that feels so massive and rich, yet surprisingly intimate at the same time. The sheer ambition of The Rings of Power as a TV series alone is enough to be in awe of. but then you have to realize that a score of equal insane ambition was an absolute necessity to make it work. Enter Bear McCreary, who somehow manages to weave one of the most detailed and rich musical worlds for television with his score for Season 1 of The Rings of Power. Bear's score becomes its own living creation with wonderful themes, beautiful variations, impressive orchestration, and something that absolutely feels born from the world of Tolkien. Lorne Balfe continues some world building of his own with the final season of his Dark Materials. The score and series has always stood out as maybe the less talked about fantasy series on HBO, but hopefully it's something that lures people into it now that it's complete. Lorne's score has been absolutely rich and detailed, with a sonic palette of its own that brings the characters and narrative to vivid life. Each season is a wonderfully crafted adaptation of Philip Pullman's trilogy of books, and Lorne's score is the emotion and energy behind the whole arc of the series. His Dark Materials was always focused on telling a complete story without stretching its source material into something it wasn't. Season 3's score is a wonderful and emotionally driven conclusion that ranks as some of Lorne's best long-form musical storytelling. The White Lotus jumped onto the scene and immediately grabbed viewers with its part anthology-style way of storytelling. Season 1 was a gripping social commentary on class and race that inched up the tension from episode to episode as it built towards its climax. The unique score from Cristobal Tapia de Veer immediately grabbed people, creating a distinct stamp that Cristobal described in our own interview with him as Hawaiian Hitchcock. For Season 2, we are presented with characters that more represent human behaviors and impulses rather than societal labels, and the score evolves as such. Cristobal enlists Kim Neundorf, who started as his assistant a few years ago, but now has shown how much she can bring with a fresh perspective for Season 2. The Italian setting and a focus on sex and relationships required the score to take a different approach, while still calling back to the wild sounds of the first season. Kim's tracks definitely bring us more into the psyche of each batch of characters, while Cristobal creates the connective overarching tissue. In the end, it still builds up to a tense finale that hooks you and doesn't let you go till the final mysteries of the plot are fully revealed. Only Murders in the Building is one of those shows that completely takes you by surprise because it hooks you with the premise as well as the notoriety of its cast, but then surprises you by giving you the unexpected. It's hard to describe Siddhartha Khosla's score to the series other than pure perfection. Something about it feels authentically New York, but also authentic to the murder mystery genre that is just very much in a renaissance right now. The main titles are something you never want to skip because they are so perfect in setting the stage for each episode. And then you dive into the show itself. While Season 1 played on the comedic brilliance of the main cast while still giving us some moments of weight, Season 2 is much heavier in tone, even though the show is still defined as a comedy. The show and score take us deeper into all our central characters, and this season's murder is much more complex. Siddhartha's score carves out moments with finesse, finding the perfect moments to hit us with some intrigue or maybe a tender moment, as this is not just a comedy. It's a wonderfully written show with great characters and a score that has us invested for the whole ride with great themes and motifs. Severance from creator Dan Erickson and spearheaded by Ben Stiller's Red Hour Productions brings forth the type of television that audiences crave. This is TV for the fans of Twin Peaks, for the fans of Lost, for people craving something so well crafted that every little minute detail was looked at. And that includes the score by Teddy Shapiro. The score for Severance is fully aware of what you're watching, but it somehow comes from the intrigue and curiosity of the characters' internal struggles. While the sci-fi mystery at the heart of the show is the main selling point, we find ourselves on a journey with the ensemble cast that we immediately gravitate towards. Shapiro's score shapes scenes with precision, the central motif appearing with perfect placement, and a main title sequence that is impossible to skip. Everything builds to the Season 1 finale, which is a masterclass in tension building and editing, all built on the back of the score. Severance is not just TV scoring at its finest, it's one of the best breaths of fresh air in a very long time, and a career best from Shapiro. Sometimes you just want a great time at the movies, and with Bullet Train that's exactly what you get. And while David Leitch's pulpy stylized action romp isn't the finely crafted popcorn flick it thinks it is, it does deliver a great sum of its parts. The entire movie's success comes from Dominic Lewis's score. Bullet Train's score was one of the most engaging and thrilling musical rides of the year in a sea of rehashed studio sequels and remakes. Dom not only delivered a wonderfully stylistic score that showcases all his best qualities as a storyteller, he delivered some original song-like tracks complete with lyrics and vocals. He also served as producer on a number of the songs in the film. It's not often you find a composer's stamp on both the score and the song album of a movie outside of animation, but with Bullet Train, Dominic Lewis delivers everything you could want, from chilling long builds, to wacky over-the-top fights, to surprising emotional depth. Bullet Train is a hell of a ride, and even if the film can be messy, Dom's score is firing on all cylinders, and it makes you want to hop right back on for another ride. Isabel Waller-Bridge is able to achieve in 27 minutes what most feature-length scores never achieve, and that's a lasting impact on the audience that fully allows you to absorb the film you just experienced. The short film, based on the book from illustrator Charlie Mackesy, is simply one of the most poignant and beautiful little stories you will experience all year. The simple story of a boy searching for home and encountering a few animals on the journey feels like a warm hug that lifts your soul from the darkness. The entire score is a nurturing blanket that validates your emotions when the world is dark, but lets you know there is love and support around you to help when things are hard. This isn't animation for children or for adults, it's for humans, and Isabel Waller-Bridge's score is the aching beauty that gives you a safe place for an emotional release. Certain things just go together, and John Williams is the milk to Steven Spielberg's cookie. There's nothing even comparable to the work these two auteurs have done together in their careers, and for Spielberg's most personal film, Williams wrote a score from the heart to his lifelong friend. The nuanced approach allows the music to be light and never heavy-handed. Williams' skillful approach allows for the melodies to marry with the characters and emotions, which are all born from Spielberg's actual childhood and his actual parents. The score feels like an intimate performance in someone's living room as you look over family photos, and in that approach, the score lets the organic emotions seep in deeply. This is a deeply poignant and beautiful piece of work that was composed with compassion and care. Carter Burwell continues his collaboration with writer-director Martin McDonagh for this sad story about how people change and how not every ending is always a happy one. This side of Burwell always has a large ripple from a small splash. The score is nuanced and dreamlike, almost like walking into a storybook. The score carves out the characters and carries a touch of somber melancholy that perfectly complements the coastal Irish backdrop the film takes place in. A civil war rages in the background while a friendship dissolves in the foreground, with nothing but confusion as to why. Like all of Burwell's scores for McDonagh, there's a dark, somber existentialism to everything, and the music paints out inner turmoil in the most elegant way. How do you even begin to approach a film like Everything Everywhere All at Once? A film that is about self-discovery, existentialism, familial relationships, immigrating and raising kids in a different country, marriage, confusion, anger, heartbreak, and most of all, love. Sunlux had the challenge of bringing this sensational film from the Daniels together, and they managed to pull off one of the most impressive musical tapestries in recent memory. The trio of Ryan Lott, Rafik Bhatia, and Ian Chang, known as their band Sunlux, came together to tackle this momentous narrative that is filled with some of the most original storytelling of the past decade. The score focuses on the emotional core of the film, while also stylistically matching the insane visuals and sequences that the Daniels are known for. The score has sonic colors that will have your brain firing and opening up parts of you that you thought were dormant. Everything builds towards a momentous climax that brings together everything for an emotional release that will leave you weeping. Well, there we have it. Thank you for joining us on another reflection of the past year in screen music. My name is Kai Savas. You're watching Film.Music.Media, and thank you for watching.